Can you hear me? On the microphone? Awesome, awesome, awesome. Hey, it's good to be with you guys. It is good to be with you guys, always in the house of the Lord, and to feel welcomed. For you guys who, whether you showed me the restroom or gave gave me a nice smile, I just really appreciate you all. Just my hope today is really that would leave more excited about Christ, and have just more of a vision as to what it looks like to live out the gospel in whatever context the Lord has us plowing in, So, and also just learn about a cool ministry that the Lord is working in and what he's doing in Baltimore City amongst you. So, again, I'm Jeff Thompson, and I have the honor, the distinct pleasure of serving young men in Baltimore City, in West Baltimore, in a ministry called 1012 Sports. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the end, but oddly enough, I'll be talking about what our name centers around, which is 2 Samuel chapter 10. So we're going to go through that text. But it was interesting. So I'm a little tired today. How many of you guys saw the Ravens game yesterday? Yeah, so it was exciting. So we brought about 40 kids there. And so it's kind of it was interesting because it's preseason game, but the energy in the stadium was just crazy. It was a lot of energy around just around preseason football. And so I don't know, it just got me thinking about just the correlation between the battlefield and the playing field, right? So as we read through the Word of God and we see a lot of lessons, even in the Old Testament come on the battlefield, and in light of the Ravens and just kind of the playing field, just thinking about the similarities between those two things. It's interesting because they are essentially like, I feel like the most extreme adrenaline pumping environments you can be a part of. So kind of the extreme highs and the extreme lows. What do they say? Thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. Those extreme highs, extreme lows. Learn to navigate through it. Learn to be a leader in the midst of these extreme circumstances. And I don't know, like for my young men, as I think about sports, and for so many, and even on the battlefield, it is one of the most potent, impactful classrooms that one can take part in. And so I want us to kind of keep this in mind as we talk through kind of 2 Samuel 10. And so for so many of our young folks, it is the place where many lessons are birthed, through the avenue of sports. And so we're gonna, as we read through 2 Samuel chapter 10, we're gonna look at an individual named Joab. And so, just like David, just like his uncle, he had ups and downs where he really screwed up, like all of us, really screwed up. And then sometimes it was like, okay, like, you're leading well. And so he was, just a little bit about Joab. He was a Jewish military leader who was pretty much promoted as he handed over Jerusalem to David. Went in and conquered it for David, and he was promoted to a general, to a military leader. And so he was an intense guy. Many folks would say he was bloodthirsty, but yeah, just very intense guy. And so we're going to look at his leadership in chapter 10. And so I'm going to if that's all right, I'm going to read through this chapter much of this chapter to give you guys a gist of kind of where we're at, because I'll be referring to it a lot. So this is 2 Samuel chapter 10, and I'm reading from the ESV version. So after this, the king of the Ammonites died, and Hanun, his son, reigned in his place. And David said, I will deal loyally with Hanun, the son of Nahash, as his father dealt loyally with me. So David sent by his servants to console him concerning his father. And David's servants came into the land of the Ammonites. But the princes of the Ammonites said to Hanun their lord, do you think, because David has sent comforters to you, that he is honoring your father? Has not David sent his servants to you to search the city and to spy it out and to overthrow it? So Hanun took David's servants and shaved off half the beard of each and cut off their garments in the middle at their hips and sent them away. When it was told David, he sent to meet them, for the men were greatly ashamed. And the king said, remain at Jericho until your beards have grown, and then return. When the Ammonites saw that they had become a stench to David, the Ammonites sent and hired the Syrians of Beth Rehob and the Syrians of Zobah, 20,000 foot soldiers, and the king of Maachah with 1,000 men, and the men of Tob, 12,000 men. And when David heard of it, he sent Joab and all the host of the mighty men. And the Ammonites came out and drew up in battle array at the entrance of the gate. And the Syrians of Zobah and of Rehob, and the men of Tob and Maachah were by themselves in the open country. When Joab saw that the battle was set against him, both in front and in rear, he chose some of the best men of Israel and arrayed them against the Syrians. The rest of his men he put in charge of Abishai his brother, and he arrayed them against the Ammonites. And he said, if the Syrians are too strong for me, then they shall help me. But if the Ammonites are too strong for you, then I will come and help you. Be of good courage, and let us be courageous for our people and for the cities of our God, and may the Lord do what seems good to him. Hence 10:12. So Joab and the people who were with him drew near to battle against the Syrians, and they fled before him. And when the Ammonites saw that the Syrians fled, they likewise fled before Abishai and entered the city. Then Joab returned from fighting against the Ammonites and came to Jerusalem. I'm going to stop there. This is essentially 2 Samuel chapter 10, verse 12 is where we get the name 10-12 sports. And so as we look at the leadership of Joab, a couple of things, before him, this guy was a beast. I mean, he was well-versed in leading battles and was very successful. Him and his crew were very successful as it. So I mean, this, opposition comes to him, and he's somebody who's very qualified for the task, And not only that, think about why he was, because of misunderstanding, because of bad judgment, bad calls by the Ammonites, he's thrown into the situation where David's like, all right, take these men and go to the Ammonites, right? And so although he's qualified, he's finding himself in a lot of adversity, right? According to context, it seems as if they are outnumbered, having the Ammonites and them hiring tens of thousands of the Syrian army to fight against them. They're outnumbered, and right now they're surrounded as we get into the context of verse number 9, right? And so we're going to look at three aspects of Joab's leadership, and I want to share about how that relates to what we're doing, to our lives, and also what we're doing here at 10-12 Sports. So three things that I feel like Joab leadership values that he really tapped into is knowing his identity, right? And we're going to go through these things, but Joab knew his identity in the midst of adversity. 2 is he embraced community. And 3, he executed his role on behalf of others. And so I'll repeat those. He knew his identity, he embraced true community, and he executed his role on behalf of others, right? So kind of going back to the Ravens, one of the cool things about preseason, I would have to explain, I don't know how well-versed you guys are. If my wife was here, I would have to explain kind of everything about football to her and, and just all that. So preseason is pretty much where folks who don't play as much, where they get a chance to showcase their talents. Maybe they're new to the NFL. Maybe they are switching teams and they're not used to starting. So it's like, okay, showcase your talents in the preseason, right? And so just looking at the Ravens, they have, kind of Lamar, everybody knows Lamar Jackson, but in the preseason is where, the other quarterbacks get their shine to get to show what they're made of. So I think second string, Trace McSorley, I believe is his name, and I forgot the Williams, the third quarterback. So all that to say, we talk about identity, right? And so all of these quarterbacks they all have the same plays in the playbook. They're all a part of the same structure, right? But if you look at Lamar Jackson, first string quarterback, versus Trace McSorley, the second string quarterback, two very different quarterbacks, right? Different styles, different identities, all right? So one of the big things for them to succeed, if you watched the game yesterday, Trace couldn't come in playing like Lamar Jackson. He had to know his identity, right? That in order for him to be a good quarterback, he has to know his identity, right? And so that was one aspect of Joab during this time that I feel like he really had down, right? So when opposition comes, he's surrounded all around. He is a military leader with a lot of experience and really believed to be put there by God, given this experience and put there by God. And so the opposition comes and he says, okay, this is what I do. This is what I do. We're surrounded. We have opposition. Like, I'm the man for this. I lead David's mighty men. This is what I do, right? And so he starts to divide people up, saying, all right, you know what? Syrian army, there's tens of thousands of them. They're beat. Like, you don't hire folks that don't do a job well, right? So they hire the Syrian army, and he says, all right, well, let's get even the best of the best out of this group. You guys come with me. We're going to fight the Syrians. And Abishai, I don't know this for sure. He probably was a little brother. You have a little brother and you just send him off to, just go do this. Like, we're going to handle the big stuff. You go do this. So Abishai, you and the rest of the crew, you guys go and fight the Ammonites at the gate, right? And so it was this sense of, you know what, like, this is what I do. This is a role, an identity that God has given me, right? So he stepped right into that, just knowing that, like, this is something God-given, this is something that I've been gifted with, and this is part of who I am. But one cool thing about identity is he also knew the role that God played in that, right? We go down to verse 12, and he says, yes, we're going to do this. We're going to be courageous and everything like that. We have the skills, but may the Lord do what is good in his sight. In other words, like, I know my talents. Here's what God has created me to do. I'm a very skillful general who has a lot of talent, who has a lot of experience, but here's who God is in the midst of that, right? So it isn't just like, all right, God, you gave me this. I'm going to run off with this. I'm going to conquer whoever. But, like, I'm going to put my skills forward. But, God, you had the results. Like, my identity is knowing, like, I know my place. Right? That you are overall in the midst of my skills. So he says, like, the Lord do what is good in his sight. Pretty much like we're skilled, the mighty men, we have a lot of battles, but we may not come out of this alive. May the Lord do what is good in his sight, right? And not only that, I think that this kind of speaks to this. He then goes on to call others to walk in identity, right? Be of good courage, or be courageous. So that word in Greek essentially means to show oneself strong or energetic. So what? So to show oneself strong or energetic. Who is he talking to? He's talking to David's mighty men, right? If it's anybody in the Bible you don't play with, it's David's mighty men. They have the reputation for being strong and mighty, right? And so, but Joab's like, show yourself strong and energetic. Pretty much be who God has already created you to be. And that's essentially what he's saying. Like, you're a mighty man. Like, be that, right? And so identity, he called them to. They had already been given that label, and he called them to walk in that, right? And so as I think about, I ask myself, in the midst of adversity, like, where do I lead from? Where's my identity in the midst of adversity? Adversity, we all have adversity. One thing that kind of makes us a living person, adversity is going to come our way. Where does our identity go? Does it go into, oh man, this is all my skills, or in who God has created us to be? One of the really cool things I love about the beginning of some of the Gospels, they talk about the baptism of Jesus, right? Before he goes into ministry, he rides into ministry on an affirmation. Comes up out of the water. This is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. Right? First thing God says to him, comes up, this is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. Right? He's affirmed of his place that the Father has given him. And he goes where? Right into the desert. And what does Satan say? If you are the Son of God. Right? Jesus starts his ministry from saying, my identity is I'm the Son of God. I need to hear that a lot of times, because I can run somewhere and I can do, and a lot of times I'm like, I forgot I was a son of God, and I'm accepted and I'm loved, and I'm, you know what I mean? And that's us, y'all. That is us, right? So identity, right? Joab, he said, you know what? God has given me the skill, and I embrace that, but also I embrace that in light of who God is, and I encourage others to embrace that identity, right? And so that's one thing. He knew his identity, right? Not only did he seek to lead from knowing his identity, but from embracing what I call true community, right? So we see in the text, back to back, I got me and these guys were going over here to get the Syrians. You guys get the Ammonites. And what did he say? He said, if we are getting overtaken in some way, you guys come and help. If you guys are getting beat, getting overtaken, we're going to come to help you guys. Hold on, Joab. I mean, like, it's not like we're sitting on the couch and somebody calls us up and say, oh, we need help. Like, we're fighting for our lives, our own self. What do you mean? Like we fight for our life. What do you mean? Come out? Like, we got our own problems to worry about. You know what I mean? Like, you handle that, please. You handle that, please. And so I think, and it really speaks to true community. True community, I believe, says we belong to one another, to each other. True community says we belong to one another. If you're not good, we're not good. That's essentially what Joab was saying. You're not good, we're not good. You're getting overtaken. We have to send some man, we got to go over there because you're not good, we're not good. Right? There, one of the things I love is it's an African proverb, and I'm gonna if somebody knows more about this, excuse me, because I'm gonna butcher this. By the Maasai tribe is the name of the tribe, and so this tribe essentially they would say a greeting, and I'm gonna try to pronounce it, Kasarian Ingera, and pretty much when tribe members would go to one another, their greeting would be, "And how are the children?" That's what this meant. And how would it? Literally, it wasn't like, "Oh, how's your day? What are you up to?" They would greet themselves with "How and how are the children?" Pretty much, if the children in their tribe, if the children aren't good, we aren't good as a tribe. Right? How do we view community? How do we view community? Is it, oh, that's their problems? Oh, as long as they keep it over there, we're good. Or they don't really have problems. What are they talking about? They shouldn't be complaining. Right? I think one really cool thing we can learn from that is we belong to one another. True community, we belong to one another. So you're not good, we're not good. Right? And one interesting thing, I mean, a very practical thing out of the story, like if I'm like, oh, I'm just focused on the Syrians and they get beat over there and they get, I now have a point of vulnerability, right? Like the Ammonites overtake Abishai and those guys. We're this way. We now have a point of vulnerability. Why? Because it was about our view of community was here rather than are we all good? Does that make sense? That makes sense. And so that was just a really cool aspect of what is true community to us. You know what I mean? Is it about us? Is it about what we have, only the things that affect us? Or do we have a body, a sense of a kingdom perspective, a body perspective? If you're hurting, we're hurting. I can't be okay if you're hurting, And I can't just mentally say, oh, that's your problem. That is something really cool aspect of leadership that Joab showed. So he knew his identity. He embraced true community. And thirdly, he executed his role on behalf of others, right? You see in verse 12, let's do this for our people in the cities of our God. In other words, what we do, people will benefit from it, right? The way that we handle this adversity right now, we have to have in mind that other folks will benefit from this, right? So let's serve them well. And so what does that look like for us? It looks like making Christ known in a very tangible way. It looks like modeling what it means to live a Christ-centered life. It looks like loving in a very practical way. It looks like sharing Christ, But I just think, I ask myself, like, when I'm going through adversity, how much of it is me versus wow, what an opportunity to serve. You know what I mean? Adversity's coming my way. Wow, what if I just handle this in a Christ-like way and that blesses somebody else? And I have others in mind as I'm handling adverse, scenarios that come my way. But he knew, man, we have to fight this on behalf of, our people in the cities of our God. Think about the verse, let your light so shine among men that they may see your good deeds and glorify God in heaven, right? So our good deeds, what we're doing, is that for us handling adverse situations, is that for others, do we do that with others in mind also? right? And so it's real cool. So knowing his identity, embracing community, executing his role on behalf of others. So I get the blessing to be able to encourage our young men with this, right? We have three values that correlate exactly with those three things that I told you: Christ, community, and coaching. And so we say Christ, like you will not know what you put here. You will not learn your identity until you have a relationship with Christ, until you know what he says about you and what he has called you to, right? And so we encourage our guys in Baltimore City with Christ. You got to get to know Christ if you want to make sense of this thing called life, right? Community, same thing. Really flipping their minds about what is community? You know what I'm saying? What does that entail? You know, and for safety, I didn't grow up in Baltimore City, so I really take on a learning posture with my guys, you know, especially when it comes to this. What is it like growing up in the city, being a young African-American male, growing up in Baltimore City? And there is a sense of like, wow, like I have to look out for me and my family so we don't get run over. You know what I'm saying? And really saying and imagining what does this look like to, at the same time, not close yourself off to the community that God has purposed for us to have. We belong to one another, right? We got to get the city to see this. We got to get our world to see this. We got to get our nation to see this. We belong to one another. So if you belong to me, it bothers me when you hurt, right? Because we hurt, right? When you prosper, we prosper, right? And so being able to encourage our guys that Christ, community, and coaching, this other piece of somebody's watching, you're coaching whether you know it or not, right? Somebody's watching, and you do what you do for the glory of God and for the benefit of others because someone's always watching, and they will be strengthened in their faith, in their character by watching you, or they will take steps back and they will be hindered by you in their walk with the Lord, or in their character from looking at you. I'm gonna tell you guys about a guy named Tyreek. And so he's a guy I've been mentoring. He started at 12 years old in the ministry. So the ministry is 13. We work with teenagers ages 13 to 18 years old, and then teenagers loosely after that. And so my mentee Tyreek, I should have invited him out today. He probably, you know how it is getting teenagers up. Shout out to the teenagers who are up. Y'all are on it. So yeah, 13. He snuck in the league at 12 years old. I'm thankful that he did. So he started the ministry. Later that year, gave his life to Christ. About 2 years, I've been walking with him 2 years. About 2 years later, I get a phone call. We talk on the phone a lot. Get a phone call, and he's kind of out of breath. I'm like, oh, hey, buddy, you all right? He's like, no, I'm not all right. And so he's right in he used to live in West Baltimore. The place was called Poe Homes. If you ever been by the Poe Museum or right by University of Maryland, by a park right around there. Very rough project home. And so, yeah, he's like, I'm not all right. I'm like, oh, what's going on? So he's like, we're on the floor right now, and somebody's shooting through our window, right? And he doesn't mind me telling this story. I tell it, and it's because it isn't I saved the day. It's he taught me. I was a student. So yeah, he's calling. Oh, I'm on the floor, and I'm thinking like, I never ever in my life grew up with anything remotely close to what's going on with you right now. Because I'm thinking like, as a mentor, what do I say to him? Like, I don't know, the guy like help me out, whatever. And so I'm racking my brain about what do you say to somebody, in this standpoint, to encourage them, but also to help them with safety wise and stuff. And so I start rattling out. I cannot not even remember what I said. But I was talking, oh, yeah, do this. And he said, Coach Jeff, I just called you to pray. Can you pray with me? And I'm like, oh, you're right. And it was real. I mean, it was this aspect, of like Joab. It's like, oh, we do what we can, but like the results of the guy. So like, you better put me the person you talk about all the time. I want you, And I'm glad he said that. And I learned so much that day. I tell it all the time. I learned so much that day from, just kind of from him. But so yeah, so he walking with the Lord on May 13th of this year. So we talk about Christ's community aspect. He had been praying for his friends. His friends don't, they don't know the Lord. He loves them. They hang around all the time. And so we had a rally on the 13th. It was on Thursday night, the beginning of our flag football season in May 13th. And so he ended up crazy. Both his best friends raised their hand and said, I'm ready to follow the Lord. which was, oh man, I was almost in tears for him because he had sincerely been praying for them. He had sincerely desired that they have a relationship. He said, oh yeah, Coach, I try to tell people about God, but people laugh at me and they say, like it's white man's religion, and they say all this other stuff. And he's like, I'm just trying to stay encouraged. And I'm like, yo, stay encouraged. Like, just continue to trust the Lord. And so he took on this aspect of community. I was just like, you know what? Like, I want them to know the Lord. They are not experiencing the full life that Christ has come to bring without Christ. I want them to know the Lord. And so that, and now just, I learned so much from him. He lifts weights with me 5 a.m. in the morning. He's super, super disciplined, but, like he has started to know, like he knows that his light has to shine at a place, where he's serving for his people, for his city, for his friends, and so much of that is what we hope to see in our young men. And you can put the slide up. It just shows some of our programs. It's just kind of putting a picture to different stuff that we do. But so right now we work with over 250 young men. And these are men so it's interesting. So in my generation, in urban context, you grew up, grandmother took you to church, right? Grandma, everybody been in church with their grandma. They're growing up in generations where their grandma just didn't go to church, right? And so very much unchurched individuals that have been pushed aside by society. It is this very real sense of, you know what, if you want to devote time and energy and resources, you start when kids are younger, because we know, you can't read by second, third grade. That's how they just correlate and decide how many jails they're going to build and things like that. And so you have this group of individuals that aren't getting challenged, that already have their mind made up, that kind of are the throwaways of our society. And so God, the jars of clay right there, where God hides in them just aspects of his image, but also they are thirsty, for the Lord. And so our hope is to be able to use sports. And we talked about sports and the power of that to be able to disciple them and show them the love of Christ in a tangible way. So we work with them with jobs. They can earn money with us by running our programs. So we have like just over 700 job training opportunities. They get money on Saturdays and stuff, working with us. They learn about soft skills that are associated with jobs, different things like that. And so it's just like, we're going to help you get a job. We're going to help you to really thrive, economically. And so while we do that, let's show you, let's show you Christ. And so guys need to be, they desire to grow as leaders. And it's like, all right, we'll work with you as leaders and show you Christ, and guys desire men that can help them, show them the ropes and walk with them. Our neighborhood, the neighborhood that we do program, 93%, just over 93.6, I believe it is 93.6% of our young men grow up in single female headed household, and so a lot of what we learn, a lot of what I learned from a male figure, from a father, it is not getting conveyed, and so we surround them with men that men of God, as we really help develop those men to say, you know what, like Paul said, not only do I share the gospel of God with you, but our lives as well. And so, that's our hope, and we're blessed to be able to do that. So I'm gonna leave you guys with this, and it's a quote that messes me up, and it gets me, and my wife will tell you, it gets me in a situation I don't need to be in, and but just thinking about community, and you got a role of everyone, because this is one thing that really kind of stuck out to me, is just asking ourselves, what does it mean to be true community, and thinking about those folks that may be that may be struggling, or may be at a place where it's just like, I can't, if I really know that I belong to you and you're struggling, I can't be okay. It can't sit all right with me. This is guy John Perkins. He does Christian community development. If any of you guys have ever heard of him, but he one of his quotes are most impactful, is my life quote, is to live the gospel is to desire for your neighbor and your neighbor's household that which you desire for yourself and your household. Now I repeat that. To live the gospel is to want for your neighbor and your neighbor's household that which you want for yourself and your household, right? And it messes me up, especially as I have kids now. and I think about what would my kids like when I'm just like, I don't have much energy, and this young man's calling me, he's about to make a bad decision, or he's just looking for community, and I'm like, you know what? If I knew my child was in need, and he needed someone to walk with him and tell him, I see you, I love you, then I would want that for my child. And so that really challenged me, but and hopefully it challenges you guys to ask yourself, what does it mean? What does it mean to be true community, right? And so we're going to end up showing a quick video. And this is a couple years ago. We were on a Vacation Bible School curriculum, so it's like a video series, and it's one kind of clip from this series. But it kind of they followed two young men, two twin brothers around as they took a part in 10-12. And so this is just part of it and part of what some of our guys, hey, we got it working, some of our guys experienced. But, my hope is that just even as you think about, 2 Samuel 10-12, you think about us, you can be reminded of those aspects of as we leading out of a healthy identity in Christ, right? Embracing true community and executing our role on behalf of others. And so yeah, hopefully that is something that's encouraging. So we're gonna check this out, and then the worship team is gonna come up and lead us in the song.
My name is Jordan Spence, and I'm 17, and I live in West Baltimore. West Baltimore is known for just bad things happening. Some people just don't want to be outside anymore. Some people just like to be inside because there's nothing good to do out there. Seeing all these other people doing, bad stuff, you just don't want to be around it. I live with my twin brother. I live with my mom and my sister. My twin brother, the difference between us is, he's more outgoing. I really wasn't the type. I wasn't the outgoing person. I wasn't talkative.
Down. Set, go.
When I met Coach Sean, it was very different.
Good job. Set, go.
Central Sports is basically kids in the communities that come together on a Saturday and come to play football.
There's no tackling, there's no contact in this league, right?
During the week, we'll go to practice.
But an important thing is they gotta grab the flag.
I take it so serious because when it comes to football, it's my life.
They gotta catch you and grab that flag.
It's way more than football to me.
Juking is gonna be the name of the game.
Central Sports is us coming to play on the field for Jesus Christ. Like when we're at practice, we have to read our scriptures and stuff like that. So we say it as a team, so everybody will know what the scripture is about. 1, 2, 3, bam! Coach Sean will ask me if I can come to his houses on Wednesdays and be a part of his Bible study.
Matthew. It's in the New Testament, it's at the end of the Bible.
Coach Sean taught me how Jesus Christ can help me a lot more, if I believe in him. And that definitely changed my perspective on life. Me, my twin brother, my older brother, none of us had our fathers. So, Coach Sean, that's like a father figure, man. Definitely. I feel like it's a brotherhood. We go out as a team, as a family. We love each other, and that's the biggest part of it. Just being a family, like Jesus Christ would want us to be.
All right, let's do our best. Let God do the rest. All right, let's go.